If you are someone like many people who feel like, gosh, I'm just priced out of this market, whether you're in Denver or Colorado Springs or, gosh, so many places around the country, you're wondering, what are my options? I guess I'll just wait. But the thing is that it doesn't actually look like waiting is really going to solve anything. I'm excited today because we've got James Brown here with us, and he's going to be talking about the idea of rent to own. So, this is a way you can bridge from, okay, I'm a renter, to just waiting, to actually buying a home. So, thank you so much, James, for joining us today. I'm excited to dive into this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully, I can provide some information and value to everybody.
Affordability is such a big deal. Nobody wants to live in a world where teachers and firefighters and, just kind of your average person can't afford a home. And so I think this is a really important thing to share this option when people are just kind of ready to throw their hands up and go, I don't know, I give up. We don't want that for sure. So, James, do you want to start and just tell us a little bit about how you got into this whole area of rent to own? Because I know you and I are both realtors with eXp Realty, and not a lot of people know about or focus on this area. So, what got you into this?
Well, I actually got into real estate on the investing side. In a way, stumbled into this model for investing. It's cool because I was doing that for myself and to build wealth as an investor, and then realized along the way that, boy, I could help people at the same time, as well as help other agents and lenders, and everybody kind of wins with this. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
So, do you
Yeah.
want to start by telling us a little bit about your company and what the basic model is? Who it's for, who it's not for, because I think not very many people have really gone through this rent to own process. So maybe just start us out with the basics.
Okay. Yeah. So my company's Real Home Solutions. You probably see the logo there in the background. My partner Toby Hansen and I run it. We're based here in Colorado, although we can help people in multiple states, in any state really. But we like to focus here if we can. Um, you know, Let me just kind of address rent to own. A lot of people have heard of it and maybe have heard of some bad things. And so my goal is to do it right. And so we can get into that, how to do it right. Um, but to answer your question, who it's a good fit for. So affordability, let's talk about affordability too. So there's no magic bullet for that. You have to be able to afford a house. But like with our program, you're not chasing the market up. Like as an example, Denver's been going up 18% every year. That's crazy. Like if you wait 3 years and it keeps going like that, like the affordability is out the window.
Right. You can't afford it this year, and then 3 years later.
Even less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So um, with the way we set these up, you're not paying as much as the market. Like we like to build in a little equity, so you'd be buying at a lower price than what the market is doing. And if the market softens, which we are seeing it doing, then there's some room, so you're not overpaying for the house when you end up buying it. So hopefully that answers that question about
Yeah.
affordability.
hmm Yeah.
And then,
So, yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say, so yeah, what is an ideal person that this would work for? Does it have to do with the amount of down payment, their credit score, their income? What are kind of the factors that when you're talking to someone, when you hear them saying things, you're like, okay, great, this would be a good solution for you.
Yeah. Well, all of those factors come into play. So, we look at the overall story of like why somebody can't get qualified for a loan. Um, for our program, it's 10% of the purchase price down. So, like as an example, a $500,000 house in Denver is going to be 50,000 down. Now that doesn't fit everybody, obviously, but it's typically a good fit for people that are self-employed, business owners. Maybe they need to, claim more income and not write off absolutely everything and do that for a couple of years, and then they can get a loan. But we can get them into a house right away. Um, so that's kind of one of the good fits for us. Um, you know, a lot of people will have credit issues, and there's a huge variety of reasons people have bad credit. But as long as it's fixable, and they can fix it within a year, 2, 3, and get a loan, that's the best scenario. Like, you know, life happens, divorce, somebody in the family dies, um, medical bills, things like that can affect your credit. It wasn't necessarily anybody's fault. It just happened, and it's fixable. So that's a good situation.
So in general, so the idea of rent to own is like if you could go ahead and just buy the house, then do that. But if you can't, then this is a way, like I was saying before, to kind of bridge the timing between, okay, your lender, whoever says nope, you're not qualified to buy right now, and but the idea is, well, what if in 3 years from now you would be qualified? So you're going ahead and getting into that home
Yeah.
now. You had said one thing about that the home that it's you're trying to build in a little bit of equity from the very beginning. Um, so maybe it would be good to talk a little bit about that process. So okay, let's say I'm that person. All right, I wasn't qualified for the loan. I'm a realtor. I'm just starting. I can't show that income just yet in a way that a bank will approve me. Um, but I do have that 50,000, maybe friends or family or someone. And is that okay? Can somebody gift you that down payment?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as, yeah, we don't care. We're not a bank.
Oh, okay.
So, but the bank will want to know that it's called sourcing and seasoning.
Mm,
Um, they'll want to know that money was paid up front. And so when they go to get a loan in 1 or 2 or 3 years, that's sitting there waiting for them to use. Um, so they can use that, and the lender can apply that however they want. So we like 10% because that gives a buyer enough to pay like a 5% down payment plus their closing costs and maybe some extra equity
mm.
in the house as well when they go to buy. So, let's talk about rent credits. A lot of people hear about rent credits. If you're paying it up front, there's no need to save up money for the down payment and closing costs. Rent credits are basically like, say your mortgage is, or your rent is 2,400 a month.
Hmm.
um, that's market rent or whatever, your rent to own lease payment would be. Rent credits are basically additional money that you would pay. Say it's $200 a month, so you're paying 2,600 instead of 2,400 each month, and that extra 200 each month is just being put away into a savings account for you as the buyer, um, to use as your down payment and closing costs. It's kind of like a forced savings plan. So you've got that money ready to go
Gotcha.
because you're going to need that when you get a loan. Um, so that's what rent credits are.
Okay.
Did I
Okay.
explain that well enough?
Yeah, yeah. So, right, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, let's just walk through the process. So, somebody comes to you and says, "Okay, hey James, I wasn't able to get this loan, but I do have income. and maybe my credit's bad or whatever, but I think in 2 or 3 years, um, I'll be able to get qualified. So, what is the process?
So if somebody's already talked to a lender, then I want to be able to talk to them so we're all on the same page and know what it's going to take to get that loan in the future and how long too, because the option agreement has a deadline. So if we look at the situation and the lender looks at the situation and we decide, you know, 2 years is going to be just right, we'll usually do like 3, just so got plenty of time to do whatever needs to happen. And if somebody hasn't talked to a lender yet, they just think that they can't, or you know they they've run their credit through Credit Karma or something, and it's like below like a 620 or something, which is kind of that breaking point where to get a loan, your credit should be above like a 620. If if they know that, think that they can't get a loan, they still might be able to. So the first thing would be to get with a lender and talk to us. So we kind of go through the motions of getting income verification, pay stubs and bank statements, and run credit. We can even just do a soft pull of credit. We don't have to do a hard one and ding it. So just kind of go through that process up front, just so we know where people are at now and what the game plan should be for
And
the future.
I think when we were talking, kind of getting ready for this, um, is that where some people kind of get in trouble by getting into rent to own without actually going, like being realistic about their chances of actually being able to buy it at the end of that time period?
Yeah, yeah, that's a big differentiator. Some of the other big companies that people may have heard about, they don't have a process where they're sending somebody to a lender and all being on the same page, kind of leave it up to the buyers. And they may not know that that's what they should be doing. So that's
Right.
part of our process. That's the first thing we do is get that game plan together. And if it's not a good fit, like we're not going to put anybody in a bad position. So we're trying to protect everybody
Hmm.
by doing that, going through that process first.
Okay, so that's kind of the first step, is to talk with the lender, talk with you guys, and go through and figure out, okay, 2 or 3 years from now, yes, I'll be able to buy this house for 500,000. Um, and so it's like, okay, great, we got this figured out. So then what happens? Are people buying a home that you've already decided on, or do they have some input in kind of the home and where it is and all that good stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, Sometimes people come to us; they've already picked out a house, um, but oftentimes, we don't have a house picked out. Um, so, once we've gone through that whole process with the lender first, then we have somebody go pick one out just off the MLS. So you have any of those. It's not homes that are in inventory already. That's kind of a myth. Like some companies will have properties shown on their website as available, but they're just ones that are kind of in their box for homes that they would be open to buying. And we kind of look at it the same way too. Um, it's better if it's in a metro area, near a good school. So, it's something that a lot of people would want in case we have to, we get the house back,
Mm,
which is not the goal of this, is to help a buyer buy a house, right?
right.
Um, so
So
some of the
you're
other,
looking, is there like a price range? So you're saying, okay, so somebody gets qualified, it's like, great, you're qualified for 500,000. Go find a home. And is with that price range, is there any specific, is there a max or min that you're looking at that works for you?
Well, anything above the jumbo loan limit,
Mm,
when you start getting every area is a little bit different. But say 650 or above is jumbo. I forget what it is right now.
yeah, something
That
like that.
that makes it more difficult for us and our investors to get a loan, and for the buyer. So um, it's possible, but it's a lot easier if it's under that price range.
And I think in the metro area, that that jumbo price is, yeah, it is maybe around 650, and that's pretty close to what the average home is. But I mean, so could somebody also do this for a condo or a townhome?
Yeah, townhomes, as long as they're fee simple, like the land is owned.
Mm,
That's kind of the across the board, kind of the rule.
right.
Um, we can look into condos. The one thing, manufactured and mobile homes, that's really tough, mainly because we can't, like on the investing side, get a loan through regular channels for
Mm,
those. So it'd
okay.
have to be a hard money loan, which is a really expensive loan, maybe a portfolio lender, um, like a local bank, like First Bank might
Mm,
be able to do that.
gotcha.
So those are more difficult.
So kind of in order of preference is single family to townhome, maybe condo, and then less likely manufactured home or mobile home.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. I mean, how likely is it for a condo? Just because condos are so, would be the starting point for, I think, a lot of first time home buyers.
yeah. You get wrapped up in the HOAs with those,
Mm,
um, and I know a lot of them, they don't allow rent to own. Like, well, it just depends on the association whether you
right,
can rent it out. There are some, and they usually have like a limit, maybe only 50% can be rented, and in that case,
right.
that would be okay. There's ways around that too. Can do a contract for deed, basically
Hmm.
seller financing. Um, it's getting in the weeds. Although
Right.
Colorado specifically, Colorado doesn't like that. In fact, we used to have a standard contract we could use, but they took that away. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm not sure when that was, a couple of years back at least. So
Right.
we just stick with leases with options to buy.
Gotcha. Right, that makes sense. You're right. Some of the HOAs will only allow maybe 20% of the homes to be rental. They can set whatever that number is that they want.
Yeah.
So that's one more hurdle, I guess, in the process. Yeah. Okay, so somebody goes out, they find the home, it fits. You guys, I guess, review it and go, yeah, this looks like, a decent area, or as far as something that would be resellable easily if you needed to.
Yeah.
And then what's kind of the next step?
Well, I mean, so we basically share that with our investors. And so we just work with individuals that can get a loan. And as opposed to some of the other companies, they've got a big fund behind them. We just match up a buyer and an investor, um, and find a good balance. So everybody's happy with the terms of the agreement. And that's basically it.
So what is it? So the person that is entering into this agreement, what do they need to bring to the table to get started? Like you know, what do they need to come with? You were talking about that 10% down. Does that happen at the beginning? Is that at the end where they're then getting ready to purchase? What does it require for them to actually enter into that contract?
Yeah, the money up front, the 10%. And some
Okay.
people pay more too. Like, as an example, we help some people get into a house down in the Alamosa area, San Luis Valley. There were a lot of complications with that. And and it was riskier for the investor. So they put 15% down just to kind of have a little bit more skin in the game.
I see. So you're saying the investor, so somebody found a home, the investors weren't so keen on it, but that was kind of the negotiated solution was, all right, we'll put a little bit more in the game. So
Yep.
what then happens? So they enter into this contract, and then they're paying their monthly rent to the investor, basically.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And then at the end of the time, what are the options? Like what actually happens? Okay, so that person's ready to buy. What does that look like? And then also walk us through what if they're not able to? What's kind of their risk, and how do those two situations work out?
Yeah, so there's an option agreement with a set price, and the investors held to that price as long as they buy, before the end of that option period. So they just basically go back to the lender they spoke with originally to come up with the game plan and buy the house. Just go to a title company and close on it. It's pretty seamless.
Yeah, that's probably a big thing then. So when you're getting into this arrangement, you already know what the price is.
Mhm.
So there's not uncertainty there, which is better than if you're waiting for 3 years, because who knows what the prices will be at that point.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a guess on everybody's part, right? So
Hmm.
just have to find something that everybody's comfortable with and
Yeah.
and use, our market knowledge to kind of try to see into the future. No one has a crystal ball, so
Right.
yeah.
And so that price that is negotiated, I mean, that seems pretty cool, because if you're saying you're trying to give them a little bit of equity a little bit lower than what they would buy it for at the moment, that's pretty neat. And then it's going to appreciate, hopefully. I mean, historically it has been, but who the heck knows? Um, so then in 3 years or whatever, they can buy it for that price that's been negotiated. So how about what if somebody they're just not able to? I don't know. They lose their job. There's other issues that kind of come up. What happens then?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. The investor could extend the option period. That'd be the first easiest thing. In fact, a lot of our agreements have an extra year built in where they can add on an extra year either for free or maybe a small fee for the privilege of extending that on. And most investors, like any kind of rental, as long as they're getting paid every month, they'd be fine extending that out. They may have to come up with a new agreement and look at the purchase price, maybe keep the same yearly increase the same, or renegotiate it. So that's those are the first easiest ways to kind of combat that. Yeah, like if the market really took a dive, extending that out till it came back that'd be the best scenario.
But let's say the person is like, you know what, we're going to move to another state. We can't. We just don't want to be involved in this anymore. So in that case, they would lose. Would they lose their down payment, or like what's kind of the worst case scenario?
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario, is giving up that. It's a non-refundable option consideration if you get into the exact
Technically,
terminology.
right.
Yeah, so it is non-refundable. That's why we want to make sure people have a good chance of getting that loan and pick the house that they really want, you know, and want to stay in the area. So it's not a good fit, the program, if somebody's, on the fence
Hmm.
about staying in the state or that particular house or neighborhood.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I can see how I don't know if unscrupulous is the right word, but yeah, I can see how somebody that was unscrupulous, that they could get that down payment and then, I don't know, somehow make it difficult, or not be pre-qualifying, not going through that whole process of making sure that people do have a plan and really understand the risk that they're taking, as well as the opportunities that they have. Um, and so that's something you were saying you guys do a little bit different. So that's good to know, because even if you are working with another company, you could still do these safety measures yourself. You can check with me, or whoever, and let's get you talking with a lender or two, and just get all that information up front.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really curious to know why. Um, how do investors feel about this? I mean, obviously, it must be a good deal for them because they're doing it. So, what's kind of the draw for an investor to participate in this?
Well, having a buyer that has some skin in the game versus a renter that,
Mm,
just has a small security deposit and has no intention of buying the house, that's a whole different scenario. So investors like that, and then they know, how much they're going to make up front. Um, where with a regular rental, they're guessing at how much they're going to get for rent. So it's all kind of um, figured out ahead of time. So they like that. And a lot of our investors, they just really like we do, helping people get into home ownership. Um, like I've had other agents be investors, and like the one in Alamosa, that was a very difficult deal to put together, with a lot of risk for the investor. And but the fact that they were helping this couple move to where her folks lived down there, and she wanted to be closer to them to help take care of them in their older years. And so the investor really connected with that. So, and those are the types of people that we like to work with.
I guess that would be a little bit different than some of these bigger companies that are doing the rent to own. It's just like a pool of money, or that comes from a pool of industrial or investors. Um, and so, yeah, it's not personal.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so maybe they're more drawn by, have to be constrained. They're running a business by the economics of the whole thing,
Sure.
and a little less heart. That story may not resonate with just a whole uh, faceless group of investors, whereas you can reach out to someone in particular, and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very connected. The investor knows the buyer's story, and so yeah, it's more of a people business, not just numbers,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so
I love hearing about this too, because I think that just like the housing justice aspect of issues dating back to, well, however far back we want to go, but including things like redlining, which push certain people out, and then other people's like whiter neighborhoods were able to grow their wealth and then be able to afford more of these homes, and appraisers were appraising them higher. I mean, it's like this whole systemic thing that's been going, that just leaves a lot of people out. Um, and so knowing that this is an option for someone to be able to kind of get into that model of home ownership as a generational wealth tool, I'm really glad to know about it.
yeah, yeah. The problem with some of these institutional buyers buying up current inventory and holding them as rentals, as soon as they get their hands on these properties, they're not going to be for sale ever again, most likely. So this is a way to get in and give people a fighting chance of buying a home. And there's also new build communities where they're building in, to rent them out, not sell them. Single family
Mm,
homes. There's plenty of, condos, townhomes, apartments that are designed that way. But when single family homes are being built and not available for people to buy, that's not a good trend for middle America to be able to buy a house. So this is a way
right.
to get in there and become a
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. The whole thing of supply and demand. If the supply is coming on, but not as homes that could be purchased, but just rented, that's definitely an issue. And yeah, a lot of people are the investors are buying homes and increasing the rent, and it definitely makes it difficult. I think about my dad. He came back from the war. He had the GI Bill, went to college, bought a home. I'm one of 8 kids. One person's salary, and he bought a home that all 8 of us kids could live in Denver. And those kind of economics just aren't there
Mm-mm.
anymore. And what I really encourage people is don't give up. Don't just go, I can't do it. That's just like there's all different ways out there, and this is definitely one of the tools in the toolkit. I was going to ask you, does anybody ever use this for a new home, or is it kind of more specifically for existing homes?
Yeah, it can. The closer to being finished or completely finished, the better.
Hmm.
So there's not a big delay or any
Right.
questions about is it going to be finished. Yeah. In fact, I've had a couple people that were under contract, home almost built, and then something came up, with their financing, where
Mm.
the lender's like, we can't do it. They're
Oh,
like, oh crap.
jeez.
Especially like they've picked out finishes, like made
Right.
it a custom home, you know, then that's not good for the builder either, because now they have a house that's been customized. Now they got to
Right.
go find another buyer and a delay. So if we can come in and buy it and help out the buyer and the builder, um, and that happens. It,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's buyers sometimes will, go buy a new car or something, and it's just all it takes is one thing where the lender's like, oh, that box isn't checked, and threw off their debt to income or something.
Right.
Um, so we could save that deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, I think this is probably the last question for you, but wondering too is what if somebody finds a home and it needs to be fixed up a little bit before they move in? Is that an option, or is that not really a good home fit? Like what would happen in those cases?
It's not ideal, but we could do that. We'd just have to, find an investor that's okay with that not being, just right. And when you talk about FHA loans, federally backed loans,
Hmm.
properties have to meet certain criteria,
Right.
livability. In this case, we could get around that, and give time to fix up the house. So in those cases, maybe we've got a contractor that their business is mainly cash business and they haven't been reporting enough income. That's very common.
Right.
So they need to start reporting their income at least for a couple of years to be able to get a loan and buy a house. Um, but they've got the skills to fix up a house
Mm.
that
Right.
needs some work. So that is totally an option.
So in that case, the person that's renting the home and then going to buy it, the renovations would be on them more so than as part of the
Yeah.
investor covering it.
Yeah. That would be the kind of, we'd work out those details,
Hmm.
maybe the investor was, willing and able to do some of it, um, and just in general, maintenance and repairs are, the buyer's responsibility because they're going to be buying the house and they're living in
Hmm.
it, as opposed to like a rental. You can call for any any problem, any of
Right.
the property management companies handling it, or the investor, landlord is taking care of all that. But in this case, yeah, the buyer would handle it.
Yeah, that's the good news, bad news. So the good news is that you can start doing whatever renovations you want, I
Yep,
guess, as long as it's kind of okay with the investor.
totally.
And the bad news is if the water heater goes out, then that's on your your dime. I mean, the cool thing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, that could be also, something figured out ahead of time, or,
Mm,
you know, it's still in the interest of both parties to get that water heater fixed,
gotcha.
make it livable. Like that's fair and ethical
Right.
to work that out, so maybe you split it half or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess by having that personal relationship, you can come up with something that works for everybody. And the thing that I always see when I'm thinking about renovations is, you can do like Excel will come out and do an energy audit for you for $150, doing a blower door test, infrared, um, thermal scanning. They'll give you a bunch of LED light bulbs and other stuff, but they'll also give you a list of all of the renovations that you can make to improve the energy efficiency. And also, like Aurora Water will give you $3,000 if you take out some of your lawn. Um, so, that's the other thing that I encourage people is when you're thinking about renovations, think about your ecological footprint and how can our kids and our grandkids are going to be like, what were you guys thinking about, man? Why were you not prioritizing caring for the planet? This is like, climate change and pollution and all these things that are because of our lack of attention. By being a homeowner, you're able to make these kind of positive impacts as you go. I've got some other videos which I'll link here. One about the energy audit, and another one about 10 places you can look for funds to help you upgrade, make those energy efficiency improvements. All right. Okay. Well, thanks so much, James, for hanging out with us today. And so, if people are like, "This sounds interesting. How do I get started?" What would you recommend that they do?
Easiest place is to go to realhomesolutions.org, O-R-G.
Okay.
And there's a video on the homepage and a form they can fill out to get the process started. And if they
Awesome.
want to work with you, Joan, they can put your name in there, so that we're all working together.
Right. Right. Because the idea is that you'll actually be buying a home in a little bit. I love this idea. I think this is a really cool tool to have in the toolkit, and helping more people get into that home ownership mode where they can start building wealth for themselves and their families. So this is great. All right, thanks so much, James, for hanging out. Really appreciate your time, and hope to see everybody soon in the Mile High City. All right, bye. Thanks.